the news.
Hi, I'm Tessa with Brainrot News with a few bits of news for you to choke on from April 4th. In today's episode of How to Tank the Global Economy Without Really Trying, the Dow just threw itself out a window, falling over 2,100 points because President Donald J. Tariff decided to poke the second largest economy in the world with a flaming stick. Yes, after Trump slapped tariffs on Chinese imports like a toddler trying to fix a microwave with a hammer, China fired back with 34% tariffs on everything American. And Wall Street reacted the only way it knows how, by collapsing in a full-blown panic spiral. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ both face-planted nearly 5%. Commodity prices went into freefall, and entire sectors are bleeding like they just got a surprise amputation. DuPont, GE Healthcare, and any company that so much as whispers the word China in a quarterly report are getting absolutely wrecked. But don't worry, Trump says it's just necessary surgery. You know, like cutting off both your legs to cure a headache. According to him, this whole thing is part of some genius 80 chess plan to bring back manufacturing jobs, attract investment, and make America great again by recreating the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve is standing in a corner like a medic in a war zone, whispering that they can't really cut interest rates anymore because inflation's still doing the cha-cha slide. Or in other words, the economy is on fire and the firefighters are out of water. All of this came despite a solid jobs report of 228,000 new jobs in March. But apparently that's not enough to calm investors when the leader of the free world is using international trade as a blunt weapon with zero regard for consequence. Let's be clear, this isn't economic strategy, it's economic cosplay. Trump is playing FDR with the diplomacy of a rusty chainsaw, and the only ones getting richer are the guys shorting the market and stashing their cash in bunkers. So buckle up, comrades. We're watching the free market get freedom bombed by its own flag-waving, golf club-wielding emperor. And in true capitalist irony, the more Trump tries to win this trade war, the more America looks like it's losing a very stupid, very expensive game of chicken. I found out that fiscal responsibility is setting the economy on fire and throwing gas-soaked tax cuts into the blaze. Senate Republicans are now moving full speed ahead with President Trump's latest fever dream, a $4.5 trillion giveaway to the ultra-rich, duct-taped to $2 trillion in cuts to whatever scraps of the social safety net are still intact. This little masterpiece of economic sadism is dubbed Trump's Big Beautiful Bill because economic arson wrapped in a flag didn't test well with focus groups and would make his first-term tax scam look like amateur hour. We're talking permanent tax breaks, new carve-outs for tipped wages and social security income, a $175 billion offering to the border wall altar, and a fresh defense budget bump just to keep the military-industrial complex feeling loved. Oh, and don't worry about the price tag. Republicans swear some of these cuts are already in policy. So, you know, who even needs math anymore? The national debt is a mere $36 trillion, practically a rounding error when your strategy is economic nihilism wrapped in patriotic bunting. Democrats are doing their best, screaming and pointing out that this bill effectively loots healthcare and education to subsidize the yacht upgrades and Raytheon's fourth quarter bonuses. But Republicans hold the majority and are powered by the kind of confidence only possessed by people who've never had to live on a fixed income, ride public transit, or drink tap water in a red state. All of this is happening while the markets are going into cardiac arrest over Trump's tariff rampage and Elon's bizarre side quest to streamline the government into a libertarian startup with zero customer service. We now live in a world where the Department of Government Efficiency is a thing, and it's run by the man who thinks work from home is communism and builds exploding cars for fun. Republicans are racing to slam this sucker through by Memorial Day because nothing honors the working class quite like gutting their benefits. This isn't legislation, this is a declaration of class war written in gold leaf and hand-delivered by a man who thinks tariffs are like Pokeballs. You just keep throwing them out until you catch something. And the American people, well, we're not even the trainers. We're the scorched earth that's left behind after the battle. The American dream now comes with a footnote that reads, offer void where brown, foreign, or politically inconvenient. The Trump administration has quietly started tearing up the visas and legal residency of international college students without warning, without explanation, and without any regard for basic constitutional rights or the fact that, these are legal students. In a policy shift that feels like it was drawn on the back of a Waffle House napkin during a Steve Bannon acid flashback, Immigration Customs Enforcement, America's least favorite acronym, along along with IRS and CPAC, is now canceling student visas and legal statuses for minor infractions or alleged national security concerns. What qualifies as a threat these days? Pro-Palestinian activism, a traffic ticket, being from the wrong country at the wrong time while studying the wrong major. Rumiza Ozturk, a Turkish doctoral student at Tufts University, was accused of supporting Hamas with about as much evidence as Trump has of winning the 2020 election. She was detained without charges, trial, or proof because apparently the First Amendment has an asterisk when applied to immigrants. Then there's Ali Reza Durudi, an Iranian doctoral student in Alabama who was arrested despite being explicitly allowed to stay in the country. Why? National security, said the government. Translation, we don't have to tell you anything, and we like it that way. So in case you haven't been paying attention, this isn't immigration enforcement. This is ideological cleansing. The government isn't just targeting visa overstays. They're targeting political dissenters, particularly those critical of the US's unholy alliance with Israel, or God forbid, the ones with thoughts that diverge from the MAGA Bible. This is about chilling dissent, disrupting research, and putting international academics under the same paranoid surveillance typically reserved for activists, journalists, and TikTok teens with leftist opinions. And universities, they're watching their best and brightest get yanked out mid-semester like it's the 1950s and Joseph McCarthy has a badge and a drone. Federal officials don't even bother calling the schools anymore. One day a student is in class, the next they're in ICE custody over a tweet, a protest, or the fact that they read the wrong book in Arabic. The White House maintains its trademark, who, us, innocents, while silently laying the foundation for a fully weaponized immigration policy designed to punish not only the undocumented, but also the deeply documented if they're not white, quiet, and useful. So if you're an international student in 2025 America, I'm sorry, you're a tweet, a suspicion, or a protest away from deportation. This isn't just racist bureaucracy, it's academic sabotage wrapped in a flag and sold as national security. And if you're wondering whether this stops with students or immigrants, the answer is no, it never does. In another episode of Mike Johnson Fails at Empathy, the House Speaker tried to block a proposal that would let new parents in Congress vote by proxy during their 12 weeks of diaper-soaked, sleep-deprived chaos. The bill was bipartisan, shockingly humane, and introduced by Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna and Democrat Representative Brittany Pedersen, basically saying, hey, if you just brought a human into the world, maybe you shouldn't have to haul your postpartum body across the country to press a button in the chamber. Johnson, who governs like a sentient church bulletin, decided no, the Constitution demands physical presence, because what the framers obviously intended in 1787 was for exhausted new mothers to travel 2 weeks after a C-section just to vote on a farm subsidy bill. Unfortunately for Johnson, reality is a harsh mistress, and so are the moms in Congress. 9 Republicans defected and sided with Democrats to block his attempt to kill the proposal. That's 206 to 222 for those keeping score. Johnson tried to save face by promising to explore alternative accommodations, which is political speak for, we'll maybe get you a lactation bathroom stall and an encouraging Bible verse. Donald Trump, the eternal chaos muppet and newly reinstalled emperor of the GOP, came out in support of the proxy vote. If you're having a baby, I think you should be able to call in and vote, Trump said in a very rare moment of lucidity. That puts Johnson in the awkward position of arguing against babies and the MAGA Pope. It's a lose-lose and you love to see it. This moment, while small, is telling. Johnson and his Purity Core Christian Cosplay Caucus think family values means banning books and scolding poor people, not actually helping families, especially not the ones who work in government. Meanwhile, the rest of Congress is like, maybe the people who give birth should get to recover without being penalized by 18th century procedure fetishism. So congrats to the new parents in Congress. You might be allowed to vote from the hospital or the nursery. And Mike Johnson, he gets to sit in his office and stew over the radical idea that parenting is hard and sometimes representation means working smarter, not just harder while bleeding. Harvard, the latest battleground in Trump's war against higher education, where the only thing offensive to his administration isn't Nazis, but students wearing face masks at protests. Yet, Trump's government is holding $9 billion in federal funding hostage unless Harvard bends the knee and rewrites its entire campus policy to match his personal authoritarian wish list. The list of demands reads like something out of an Orwellian fever dream. No masks at protests, because clearly the biggest threat to student safety isn't violent agitators or police crackdowns, grounds, but some sophomore trying to avoid being doxxed. Stricter speech and protest policies, because the party that screams about free speech constantly being under attack really means only the speech they approve of. Gutting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, because equal opportunity is shoving marginalized students back into the shadows. And the cherry on top, Trump wants complete control over hiring and admissions, demanding that Harvard eliminate race and identity-based preferences. You know, the same preferences that give white, wealthy, legacy students a free ride while everyone else has to fight for scraps. But yeah, let's pretend this is about fairness. We need to be honest, though. This was never about anti-Semitism. If Trump actually cared about that, he'd start with the Nazis in his own administration. This is about power. This is about using federal money to force universities to purge progressive ideals and enforce conservative orthodoxy. It's a test case. Harvard is one of the first, but not the last. Every school that even slightly challenges right-wing hegemony is next, because to these people, education is the enemy and an informed critical thinking population is a threat. They don't want students learning history. They want them indoctrinated. They don't want debates. They want obedience. They don't want academic freedom. They want ideological control. The scariest part, they might get it, because when billions of dollars are on the line, even institutions as powerful as Harvard have a breaking point. And once enough of them fall in line, the rest will follow. This is about silencing dissent before it even begins. And if we don't fight it, the next generation won't even know what they lost. Let's talk about the dystopian farce happening in Florida, where instead of fixing the housing crisis, tackling poverty, fake addiction treatment centers, or addressing rampant gun violence, the state has decided that the real threat to public safety is a transgender college student using a restroom. Marcy Rankin, a 20-year-old woman from Illinois, went to the Florida state capitol, walked into a women's bathroom, and walked out in handcuffs because she dared to exist in a place that makes Ron DeSantis uncomfortable. She told all 160 lawmakers ahead of time what she was going to do. It wasn't a surprise ambush. It was civil disobedience, a peaceful protest against a vile and extreme law. And how did Florida respond? Like the freedom-loving defenders of liberty they claim to be? No. They had her arrested for trespassing, as if using the bathroom is now a criminal act depending on the genitalia you were assigned at birth. Unfortunately, she's facing 60 days in jail. 60 days for peeing. This is the first known enforcement of Florida's anti-trans bathroom law. They're testing the waters with Marcy, a young woman who committed the egregious crime of using a restroom that matched her gender identity. This is the world the GOP is building, where your body, your identity, and your dignity are all subject to state surveillance and punishment. Limited government is checking your birth certificate before you're allowed to wipe. Here's the part I don't like the most. They want her to suffer. Marcy has real concerns that she'll be put in a men's jail where trans women face horrific abuse. She could be denied hormone treatments and locked up with people who see her as less than human, all because Florida decided that bathrooms are now battlegrounds in their culture war. These laws aren't about safety, they're about control, about humiliation, about forcing trans people back into the closet or into exile. It's the same fascist playbook with a new target: dehumanized, criminalized, and then act shocked when people resist. But Marcy, she's got more courage than the entire Florida legislature combined. She stood up, she walked into that bathroom knowing exactly what would happen, she turned her arrest into a spotlight, and now the whole country sees what this is: bigotry in law enforcement's clothing. This is a test case. If they get away with it here, they'll come for more states, more people, more rights. This is how it starts, with a toilet and the government trying to flush away human dignity. If you were hoping the American healthcare system would finally get the leadership it deserves, congratulations, your prayers have been answered by a man who once told viewers to sprinkle raspberry ketones on their cereal to lose belly fat. That's right, Dr. Oz has been officially confirmed by the Senate to run the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. This isn't a joke, it just feels like one. A bad one, the kind your weird uncle tells after Thanksgiving dinner. In a 53-45 vote, the Senate decided that a man best known for selling miracle beans and hawking detox scams on daytime TV should now oversee healthcare for over 150 million Americans. Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act. Billions of dollars, millions of lives, and the fate of our most vulnerable all now fall under the watchful eye of heavenly contoured gaze of Dr. Oz. Rest assured, though, Dr. Oz has plans. He's going to solve everything with kale and chatbots. He's pushing telehealth, artificial intelligence, and healthier lifestyles, which is political code for don't get sick if you can't afford it. He supports work requirements for Medicaid recipients because in his mind, people need to to earn their right to survive. If you're disabled or elderly and can't clock in at a Walmart, I guess that's just nature's way of telling you it's time to go. Let's not forget who's standing behind him with that eerie anti-vax grin. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who just gutted hundreds of positions from federal health agencies, including entire departments that handled minority health and cost management. Who needs oversight when you got turmeric, I guess? Together, these two are like the what if of public health disasters. What if your weird cousin who believes essential oils cure diabetes took control of the country's largest healthcare programs? Dr. Oz claims he still supports vaccines. He just wants to have a conversation. You know, the kind of conversation where people die from measles. Meanwhile, he's publicly refused to oppose Medicaid cuts, even as Kennedy swings a machete through federal health jobs, and he's tight-lipped on how slashing services for the poor and elderly fits into his wellness revolution. Maybe he's planning to just manifest more funding. This isn't reform. It's a hostile takeover of our healthcare system by televangelists and lab coats. The grift has gone institutional. Medicare and Medicaid are being served up like late-night infomercial products. Buy now and we'll throw in this unqualified millionaire for free. Just pay a shipping and handling fee. Only the cost of your soul. We're witnessing the death of expertise, drowned in a green juice cleanse and wrapped in a lab coat for plausible deniability. The man who told America that astrology could help you lose weight is now declaring who gets cancer treatment. If that doesn't terrify you, you might already be dead. In a rare win for logic, science, and anyone who occasionally likes not dying, a federal judge has temporarily blocked Donald Trump's plan to gut $11 billion in public health funding, just before it could finish rolling through America's healthcare system like a rusty lawnmower over a mass grave. Judge Mary McElroy, delivering what may be the only good judicial news this week, issued a temporary restraining order after 23 states and DC sued the administration for trying to rip the spine out of their healthcare budgets. These cuts, aimed at COVID-19 funding and other unnecessary public health initiatives, were, according to Trump's Department of Health and Human Services, no longer needed because the pandemic is over. You know, that same pandemic that continues to kill people, exacerbate chronic illnesses, and leave millions with long-term health complications. But hey, what's science when you got vibes? The lawsuit argues correctly that this money isn't just pandemic emergency cash. It's the lifeblood of state-level healthcare systems. We're talking programs for mental health, substance abuse, immunization drives, elder care, and actual infrastructure needed to survive whatever catastrophe hits next. So naturally, the Trump administration thought, why not cut it? It's not theoretical either. States are already bleeding jobs and services. Minnesota laid off 200 health workers, California is staring down $1 billion black hole, and North Carolina stands to lose $230 million, which is a hell of a lot of ventilators and addiction clinics. And Pennsylvania's governor, he's screaming until his voice is gone that you can't take away $500 million for vaccines and elder care. The Trump team claims this is about streamlining post-pandemic spending, but what it actually looks like is deliberate sabotage of public health because small government is letting more people die of preventable deaths, I guess. It's the libertarian dream. Get sick, go broke, and die fast, preferably off the books, so your demise doesn't mess with the quarterly GDP numbers. This isn't just a budget cut, it's a mass euthanasia of infrastructure carried out with spreadsheets and smirks. The plan doesn't just weaken pandemic readiness, it hobbles mental health services, addiction treatment, elder care, and the capacity of overwhelmed states to function in a post-COVID world already teetering on collapse. Judge McElroy's ruling puts the brakes on for now, but this is a stay of execution, not a pardon. The administration can still appeal, and the GOP's long war on healthcare will continue, now under the careful leadership of Dr. Oz and RFK Jr., who would love nothing more than to swap out your hospital visit for a TikTok of celery juice recipes. This is what happens when ideology outpaces empathy and death becomes a line item in a budget. Public health is not a luxury, it's a basic obligation of governance, and this administration would rather dismantle that obligation brick by brick just to prove that government doesn't work by making sure it doesn't. So if you're one of the millions who rely on these programs, keep your fingers crossed and your insurance card handy. The virus may be evolving, but the cruelty, that's the same strain we've been dealing with since 2016. In a scene straight out of Black Mirror, but somehow dumber, a man named Jerome DeWald decided to spice up his legal strategy by having an AI avatar argue his case before the New York State Supreme Court's Appellate Division. It went as well as you'd expect. Within seconds, the judges pulled the plug like they were killing off a bad deepfake of Law & Order ChatGPT unit. DeWald, who is representing himself in an employment dispute, because of course he is, claims he used the AI avatar to enhance communication. That's a noble spin on I want wanted my argument to look like it was delivered by a dead-eyed tech demon with perfect dictation and no soul. He didn't tell the judges in advance, which is generally frowned upon when the fate of a legal proceeding hangs in the balance. The court was not amused. Justice Sally Manzanet Daniels expressed disappointment, which is legalese for what the actual hell are you doing. To DeWald's credit, he apologized and insisted he wasn't trying to deceive anyone. He just thought a synthetic talking head would be more compelling than, I guess, a living, breathing human being with a stake in the outcome. This, folks, is what happens when you read too many startup blogs and not enough case law. I mean, I guess to be fair, this isn't totally unprecedented. Some courts like Arizona's Supreme Court are experimenting with AI avatars for public communications, but that's like explainer videos on how to file a motion, not arguing a case that could set a precedent for real humans. You know, baby steps. Meanwhile, DeWald tried to leap straight into robocounselattorney.exe. Legal experts are already bracing for more of this nonsense, as self-represented litigants without lawyers turn to AI tools to level the playing field. And yeah, there's something kind of tragic there. Real people are so alienated by the legal system that they're building digital clones to speak for them. We also have to draw a line though, because once we start allowing synthetic attorneys into courtrooms, we officially turn the justice system into a bad cutscene from a dystopian courtroom simulator. These tools aren't sentient, they can't be held accountable, and if one ever starts citing legal precedent from Star Wars or the Bible, it'll be too late. This whole episode is a neon warning sign. We're sleepwalking into a future where people think AI should do everything for them, including speaking in court, making laws, maybe even sentencing each other. And unless the legal system wakes up fast, we're gonna end up with a judiciary full of avatars, algorithms, and no actual accountability. So let's be thankful for Justice Manzanet Daniels and the New York bench for pulling the plug, because if the justice system is going to fall apart, it shouldn't be because some guy couldn't be bothered to read his own damn argument out loud. Israel launched another round of airstrikes in Gaza on Friday, killing at least 17 people, including entire families, and injuring at least 16 more. If this were the first time, it would be a tragedy, but it's not the first time. It's not even the first time this week. The day before, over 100 Palestinians were killed in another round of bombardment. This is not new. This is not unexpected. It is deliberate, calculated genocide, the slow, methodical destruction of an entire people under the pretense of security. And if the word genocide makes you uncomfortable, good. Because what else do you call it when a military kills over 50,000 people, most of them women and children, in less than a year? What else do you call it when a government systematically starves an entire population by blocking food, water, and medicine? What else do you call it when entire families are wiped out, their homes reduced to dust, their names lost to history, all while the world looks away? What do you call it? Israel isn't defending itself. It's erasing Gaza from the map. It's turning every street into a graveyard, every hospital into a morgue, every school into rubble. The Netzarim corridor, a cold, bureaucratic term for what is essentially a ghetto, is just another way to divide and conquer, another piece of the puzzle of forced displacement and ethnic cleansing. They bomb civilians, then blame them for dying in the wrong place at the wrong time. There is no wrong place. Gaza is the wrong place. Gaza is a death trap, and Israel has the key. The sheer scale of the horror is beyond comprehension. 280,000 people have been forced from their homes again in just the last few weeks. That's not counting the millions already displaced. That's not counting the ones who never got to flee because an Israeli missile found them first. That's not counting the ones trapped under rubble, suffocating before rescuers can reach them. And the bombs are still falling. And for what? What is this really about? Their official excuse is still Hamas. The excuse is always Hamas. But if things were about Hamas, why is Israel bombing refugee camps, hospitals, and UN shelters? Why are they targeting journalists? Why are they cutting off humanitarian aid? Why are they massacring children? Hamas is the excuse. The goal is total destruction, and yet world leaders pretend they don't see it. They talk about Israel's right to defend itself while ignoring the mountains of Palestinian corpses. They beg for restraint as entire neighborhoods are turned to dust. They call for peace talks as Israel blocks humanitarian aid and turns starvation into a weapon of war. They make vague statements about concern while actively funding and supplying the genocide they claim to oppose. The United States is complicit. The European Union is complicit. Every government that continues to arm Israel, every politician who refuses to call this what it is, every journalist who waters down the truth with words like conflict or tragedy, they are all complicit. This is not war. This is genocide. Stop lying to yourself. If there is any justice left in this world, the people responsible will pay for what they have done to the people, the men, the women, and children of Gaza. That's all for Brainrot News. Like and subscribe because the news won't stop being brain poison, but at least will help you build a tolerance.